my white lab coat today.
Oh,
So any sort of arguments I make are going to have to be backed by facts and research, I guess.
shit.
But my opening remarks, I want to give a quick shout out to the Northside ISD Superintendent, Dr. Brian Woods, who promised to implement a phased plan in reopening his schools based on public health metrics. On a podcast this week, he defended his staff and students by saying, if you choose to not fund us, then we will see you in court. So I thought that was I think that was a great job of him kind of sticking up for his staff and his students. So I just wanted to kind of give a quick shout out his way, man. He's doing it right.
JB, how you living?
Terribly. No, man.
The more things change, the more they stay the same over here.
Yeah, trying to keep an even keel for the show and make sure as little changes as possible. But yeah, things are fine. We've got so much going on in the country, and it's just like you think. It's almost like we'd love a calm week, but I don't think we're gonna have any for a while. So yeah, I've come to the realization, looking online and stuff, that a lot of my friends lists on all these different platforms are kind of under the impression that all opinions are created equal, and hopefully we'll endeavor to prove that that's not true later on in the show. But yeah, just enjoying my daily feeds and trying to go outside at least a few times a day. So. What about you, man? Welcome back.
Thanks. Speaking of Facebook, you know, the guy running that thing, little known name, Mark Zuckerberg, and a few other poor souls that don't have a lot of money, but and very little power, got grilled a little bit today by the Democrats and Republicans. So stay tuned next week. We'll have time to kind of comb through that a little bit more, and that'll most likely be a topic for that. But I thought that was pretty interesting stuff. And then I was escape pod member number 2 to get the COVID-19. So that was
Just one more to go.
Yeah, one more to go. We're just waiting for JB to join the squad.
Do not put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
But yeah, so that's that. And my brother had a wedding last Wednesday, so I almost skipped the wedding for y'all, but I decided it was probably best to have a little bit of family time.
Shout out AK, man.
AK. But JB, we're gonna kind of start with politics. We'll start with whatever you think is the most important thing, but can you kind of run through this week's headlines?
Well, yeah, man. So to start it off, the Ronald Reagan Foundation officially asked the Trump campaign and the RNC to stop using his name in campaign ads, which it stood out to me. We can get into it a bit later, but yeah, it definitely stood out to me. And that's if you had to pick somebody that's the figurehead of the Republican Party in the modern era, it would probably be Reagan, for better or worse.
Yeah, I heard that Governor George Wallace's family did the same thing, that they had to kind of double back down as well.
Yeah. So it's Democratic talks about the VP have kind of continued. I'm happy that Mr. Biden still, I guess, remembers that he needs to select somebody, that's still a thing. So right now, the two front runners for that are obviously Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren. So it stuck out to me because kind of in the year of the uprising against like corrupt policing or like incorrect policing, the response to that from the DNC, you know, like in a year of populism, let's go with the establishment candidate, and then in the year of the protests against police brutality, let's have a cop as the front runner. And then
hashtag woke.
Yeah, hashtag. Trump continued the claims of imminent mail-in voting fraud. So we talked about kind of how it could be construed as a dangerous thing moving forward, but he hasn't let up on that, despite the fact that he and all his family members vote by mail.
Yeah,
and that literally every active duty military person that isn't in the country in November will also have to do. So
did you know, JB, off of that, I was doing some research when JB is our guru of doing all this stuff, and so he gives us some notes. So I was looking up. So shout out to JB. But do you know that in Texas, COVID is not a valid excuse for mail-in? It is a mental issue, not a physical issue.
Yeah, apparently you're imagining it. Like if you have all the symptoms and you can't you can't do anything. Apparently you're imagining it. But
As a proud Texan, that hurt. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I didn't want to interrupt your highlights, but I was rolling through that. I thought that was fun.
Attorney General Barr was also grilled across the board as far as decisions to move federal officers into Portland and other cities, and was kind of put on blast, and we'll get into it a bit later. And then the DNC platform committee met and had some votes that didn't exactly go the way that reflect the majority. And so that's what's been going on politically. And also finally there was a giant massive sharing of a video from the really amiable people at Breitbart that went ultra viral. Like, I don't even know if you could call it viral. It was shared I think 20 million times in 5 hours. And then subsequently Republican politicians, the Trump administration, and half of the people I grew up around are now just absolutely irate that all the major social media platforms have taken them down. And so we can get into that towards the end. But I guess our first major discussion would be, what are you guys' thoughts as far as the mail-in voting fraud allegations before they even happen, and is that going to be a consistent theme moving into November?
Yeah. I want to point something out that I think is pretty important, that this isn't the first time that Trump has questioned the election results. Like when he was primarying for this 2016 campaign, he brought up the same exact issue again, citing voter fraud. And this is something that comes straight out of, like, I'm reading a great book right now called How Democracies Die. And they kind of really do like a profile on authoritarian figures. And one of the key marks of a authoritarian figure is they question the legitimacy of any sort of democratic process, such as an election. So this isn't the first time he did it. This is the second term in a row, or the second election in a row that he's doing it. But I think more importantly than who wins this election in 2020, I think the bigger thing at stake is kind of the democratic process in general. Like, I would really like to see, when the dust settles November 4th, us have a clear winner, regardless. I don't care if it's Trump or Biden. At this point, to me, it really, I know a lot of people want to hear it, but to me, it doesn't make a huge difference right now. And I hate to say that and admit that, but I just don't want the election to be questioned. I think the only winner, if that happens, is going to be somebody like a Russian or another foreign influencer. And because Americans will start scratching their head. Are these free and fair elections? So I hope, regardless of which way it sways, I hope we have a clear winner come November 4th.
I think you guys both make good points. I have a general question for you guys. Is it sound strategy for Trump to do that? I would think the over 65 vote, which would be the people that feel the most uncomfortable going out and voting, would be leaning red. And like, I would think that he'd be helping himself. And then my one little thing is, I mean, California and Oregon already mail ballots to, like, there's plenty of states that already do this. There's already some level of this in every state. So it's not like we'd be doing anything unique. It's just we'd be expanding this to a larger group of people. But what are your thoughts on that? This being a very strategic thing for him, and do you think it's a sound strategy?
It's almost I don't want to say it's meant to sow discord and chaos, but it's very much a thing. We talked about it a little bit last week. Like, it's kind of the equivalent of an athlete making excuses for losing before they lose.
Yeah,
and right. It's like, it's not only is it extremely unbecoming, but like, mail-in ballots have been a thing for a very long time. And he's kind of, I guess his political team and his campaign, I think they figure there's a method. You have to figure there's a method to their madness, even if you disagree with them on everything. And so they're probably thinking there's some advantage to be had. And then if they lose, then there's an excuse. Trump can fall back on something and say, well, it was fraud, or, oh, you're letting all these illegals vote, or whatever. And it's like, well, maybe it's just that you're the most unpopular president in the history of the country. But I do think that they, what you said about elderly voters and those over 65, you would think in a normal world that's what makes sense, is that they should definitely be the ones voting by mail. But that would also be, you would also have to think that those people were thinking clearly and that they hadn't been brainwashed through a TV screen for months on end. So it's like a great number of those people that should absolutely be voting from home aren't really sold on the legitimacy of the virus in general and aren't really sold on the risks that are involved. So I don't really think that Trump's too concerned with their well-being, to be honest.
Yeah. I see this thing going down to the wire. Even if we allow mail-in voting, then there's going to be more of the silent majority, if you will, that will show up. I think the media wants this to be close. I think they want it to be something where people are tuning in every night, trying to get the latest news. And the polls will kind of reflect that. I think as we start to inch a little bit closer to November, you're going to start seeing that lead that Biden has kind of dwindle a little bit for whatever reason. Maybe it's the media's influence. Maybe it's because he's not as strong as a candidate as Trump is right now. But again, my eyes are completely set on less on how they're going to allow people to vote, but more so trying to avoid if we put ourselves in a position where we see like a Bush-Gore election again in 2000, where we wake up and nobody's named president, the shit is going to hit the fan. It's going to be a lot
more violent than the year 2000.
It's going to be, it'll be crazy. And so I just hope, again, for the sake of democracy, if democracy is on the ballot, I hope that it doesn't come to that point, because I guess I fear the worst if it happens.
There was a guy that was, and not that polls are the end all be all, but there was a guy that was beating him by almost double figures in every single poll and every single slant in any projected election. But yeah, he won't be on the ticket. So
it's gone now.
Yeah.
Do you think it's interesting, ever since his campaign manager team flipped, that you've seen a lot of bills come out this week where he's doing like child trafficking, he's signing stuff for like infrastructure and airports, things that like are generally popular.
Yeah.
Like it seems like there's finally some sort of strategy that they're going towards. Like
over 3.5 years into the administration, it's like, hey man, try to do some things that will help some like that would create some votes for us. And I think pharmaceuticals and it's just like, if that makes it through, if he does sign that, and if it does make an impact, it's like, I'm not going to be so partisan to where I'm like, anything that Trump does is shit. But it's just like, we see when you're doing these things, and you damn sure didn't get elected off of wanting to do things like this, and you damn sure didn't run the first, hopefully the first and only term of your administration off doing stuff like this. But they are starting to reach a little bit. They are starting to get a little bit more active. So who knows?
It's kind of on that thought, man. I think it's really clear, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about the protests and the riots that are going on, but it's really clear that some sort of uprising in the streets of these democratic cities, it becomes politically advantageous for those to take place for Donald Trump. And I say that because he has to find a way now that the economy isn't booming. We don't have record low unemployment. There's still 30 million Americans that are filing for unemployment. He has to find a way to differentiate himself from Joe Biden. And so it seems like, and we've talked about this before, he's passing all these, he's passing all this legislation that is very much, popular with the public.
Well, and he didn't have to do shit before, whenever the economy was doing well, and before the pandemic really hit it.
Exactly.
5 months ago he was at CPAC saying like this will all be over soon. It's very much under control. And now that it's not, he has to be doing something.
He has to be doing something. And so Biden what has he done? His strategy is to bunker down in his basement, and Trump is trying to find a way to differentiate himself.
Stay in the house.
No, he's building back better. You're missing. Didn't y'all see I think it's really interesting. You talk about like the timing of all this too. That we're about 90 days out, and you guys know what the mail-in, it moves everything up. Like that's all of a sudden we saw in Kentucky. We were talking about the Booker, where he was clearly in the lead, but she had built, I'm blanking on her name now. McGrath had built up such a lead early. Like those people that do voting by mail normally cast their ballot early, so it really moves up the clock for some of them. So it'll be very interesting. I agree with your sentiment that I just want a clear winner at this point, like something where like that, and we can.
I disagree with both your sentiments, because I don't want either one of them to win, but I also don't want the nation to plunge into armed rebellion and civil war.
You don't have to vote for any of them.
No, Green Party.
I'm voting for Kanye. I'm just writing him in.
God damn it, Dustin.
Just kidding.
Yeah. The next thing on the docket would be the DNC platform meeting. So on this show, you won't find very many kind words about the current administration, but you also won't find too many about the opposition, if you want to call it that. So they had the DNC platform committee is basically they vote on what the platform is going to be for a chosen election cycle.
You mean it's not the people?
No.
Oh.
So if you hadn't noticed, this upcoming election cycle is, as we've mentioned, is fairly important, and so they vote on that. They get all the polls, all the information of how Democratic voters are, how and even how Republican voters and how moderate voters
And then
are
trust the
leaning.
general population, right?
One would think in the freest society in the world, one would think in the most democratic, but no. So they met, and then like I said, we won't go down the entire platform tonight because there's other cool shit to talk about. But the two notable ones, I think, were Medicare for all and legalization of marijuana. And so those two things, and I'll give you some numbers here, and we can get into it.
Joe Rogan's gonna be pissed.
88, despite 88% approval rating from prospective voters, and
that's on which one of those two? The 88%?
Medicare for all. So this is among Democratic voters, 88% support Medicare for all. And now check this out. The Republican number is not as low as you would think. It's very close to 50. It's just a shade under 50, and so that puts you're right at around 69-70% of all voters in America are not opposed. They're not just not opposed. They're in favor of Medicare for all. And so the party that's supposed to be the most progressive votes against that. So it only had 22% support from the committee.
Yeah.
So that's flipped. That's then for legalization or decriminalization across the board, it also failed pretty miserably and I think that's largely because Biden's made his opinions known, and he was, his crime bill, among other things, was very much so based around war on drugs.
At this point, you're asking him to kind of flip a little bit, right?
Yeah.
If he takes on both of those issues. Very similar to what I was saying last week when we were talking about, I know I discussed like one of the conversations that I really wish people were having was a 4-day work week. The second conversation that I wish we were having in this pandemic is the Medicare for all. You have 30 plus million Americans that lost their jobs. So they're losing their primary source of income, and they're simultaneously losing their employer provided healthcare or insurance. So I feel like this is just a timely conversation that a lot of us we're just simply missing out on, but also the DNC, it shows that they feel really comfortable with their candidate enough so to where they're not going to ruffle the feathers of their establishment. And so that's very telling of where their priorities are and how they don't necessarily match the priorities of their constituents. But I want to make one final point. We're talking about Medicare for all, and these people that fear the term socialism. The same people that have talked bad about socialism are the same exact ones that are crying for public schools to be reopened, recognizing the importance that one of the largest social programs in our nation brings during a time like this. It's like you can't have it both ways. You're either you're for it or you're not. You can't selectively choose when you enjoy the socialism that's a part of our mixed economy and step away from it whenever it's convenient to you. Yeah.
Well, I think really, man, you hit the nail right on the head, but it's like the DNC is in a position where this is, I think the public's been really galvanized as far like with everything that's going on, and they have a choice to make. It's like, are you going to take the side of a large majority? It's not a 50 something percent majority. You're talking about 88% of the people that you're expecting to come to the polls are in favor of Medicare for all. And to be clear, we're talking about universal health care, like it's an improved version of Medicare. And it's just like, for you to turn the other way, and same thing with marijuana legalization, even if you don't fully legalize it, to decriminalize it, for those two issues, for you to turn your back on the people that you're expecting to come and vote for you, to vote out Trump, it makes it really clear that you are not, just because you're a little bit softer around the edges than the GOP, you're not a party of the people.
No.
You don't represent us. You don't represent the people. You very much so are still in the pockets of insurance companies,
Mhm.
pharmaceutical companies, and every other giant lobby, every other thing that is not the American public. That's what
They're not
yeah.
even trying to hide it at this point.
No, and that's the thing. I don't want to keep bringing it up, but it's like with Bernie, that's somebody that I admire the movement that he created, but when you really think about it, man, that's how big of an obstacle he had.
Yeah.
Is because you're not just fighting for voters, man. You're fighting hundreds of millions of dollars that those insurance companies are not going to let up on. Pharmaceutical companies are not going to let up on, and so that's what you're up against. It's not a matter of just one vote, one person. You're fighting entire industries for the control of the government.
Yeah, I think y'all did a good job with the Medicare for All stuff. Like, I would just like to hint a little bit more at the marijuana stuff, because I mean, amid this Black Lives Matter stuff, like, who do you think criminalizing things like marijuana is affecting most? It's inner city minorities, like that's something. And then, I mean, it's just in Canada, there literally be like doctors' offices there's medicinal purpose for it. It's just, and I think Canada's a pretty civilized society, that I think there's enough science behind it that it's just tough for me to see that we're in 2020 and you can still get locked up for marijuana.
Well, and
difficult.
people love to reference, failed states and like really bad places when they talk about socialism, but they usually shy away from mentioning Canada. It's like doing just fine and very, very much a democratic socialist society, but they don't bring that up. But yeah, I just, the last thing before we transition here, man, I think you made a good point when we're talking about BLM and you're talking about the current movement, current protests, the base reason for most of these protests. What if we're talking about making a real change, for example, just legalization, or at the very least decriminalization of marijuana in this country, dramatically changes things for poor Black communities and for even family units, right? And so if we're talking about seeing real change, I would much rather see the DNC get behind that, and I would much rather see politicians get behind that than stenciling a phrase on a street, or renaming a street, or even taking down a monument, for that matter. Like, if you're talking about substantial
replace
change,
symbolic victories with actual victories.
Yeah. I don't
lives.
Forget about these moral victories. Get an actual victory.
I agree.
Yeah, I just want to clarify what y'all are talking, because you keep saying that both of y'all have mentioned that legalizing marijuana is somehow going to help the African American community exponentially, as it will. And I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. We are talking about when it really boils down to it is the discretion that's exercised by police if you're in a stop and you get caught, right? Because it's not one of these things. I guess I could compare it to very similar to drinking if you're under the or driving when you're under the influence, right? Like, let's be honest, not everybody is getting ticketed whenever you're drinking. Drinking and driving, right? And so I guess we could kind of compare those two. Is that more or less what y'all are saying?
Yes.
Well, and like, again, we could spend an entire hour talking about this, but if you're talking about how it impacts Black communities, just this one thing, if you talk about the war on drugs and its impact on those on poor minority communities, every time I've had these discussions so many times in this in our neck of the woods, where people are like, well, these people are committing crimes and there's so much of this going on. It's just like, well, why are these neighborhoods like this? Why are these family units that you're referring to, why are they broken? Well, there's many reasons for that. There's historical reasons for that. But one big one would be that men and women, like parents, are being locked up for nonviolent drug offenses. And in this case, marijuana is the most common one. So it's like you have people that are not violent people being incarcerated, and you're breaking up family units, and you're throwing a wrench in that system for something that shouldn't be causing it. And so that one thing would be a substantial change that I think would actually yield results much more than just caring about what phrase is on a street and a symbolic victory.
Well, what's so difficult about that too, I mean, referencing some of the stuff you're talking about, JB, is like Joe Biden has been the author of so many of these these bills that, I mean, the 1994 crime bill is one of the biggest reasons that, the incarceration of minorities, where like Joe Biden is given a lot of credit for that bill. And so we are in the rock and a hard place situation where we have two candidates who both have some guilt towards race relations and that type of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're just people get confused sometimes and are distracted, I think, from what should be the actual goal and what would actually change people's lives with these symbolic victories. So hopefully eventually the woke crowd can get woke to those facts and can push for those, and we'll try to do the same.
JB, kind of off of that, what are some of your thoughts on Portland and all these issues that are going on there, and what are your general ideas on it? Yeah, I'm sure you guys have talked about it on previous podcasts, but it still seems to be pretty relevant in the news.
Portland's been wild, man. I've been watching that, I guess, more closely than any of the other ones. So these originated as BLM protests and still are at their root BLM protests. But now that we're in week 2.5 of federal officers being put in there, it's escalated, and there have been solidarity protests in Seattle and in other places in the country. And they're basically refusing to leave until the situation. Trump said yesterday that they're not going to leave until the city is calm, and he said, he used the phrase clean it out if they have to. So people are still being gassed, people are still being beaten.
This is when he's supposed to activate Bill Barr too, isn't he? Isn't that the phrasing that?
Yeah, exactly.
Let me just, when you're talking about that, because I watched the congressional hearing, and Bill Barr is kind of hiding behind that veil of, well, it's our obligation. It's what it says we're supposed to do. Not because I want to be there, it's just because I have to be there, right? Could you imagine if federal troops, or I know we're going to talk about later of private contractors, right? Could you imagine if a blank check was written for a local problem that wasn't a failure of law enforcement, but it was a failure of another local entity, like a school district? Like, could you imagine if we activated federal resources to solve something like public education or homelessness? Like, instead of people coming out with these tanks that are going across these cities and trying to put out these mobs and these riots, could you imagine if it was like, hey, we're going to activate the federal resources to go ahead and handle homelessness in San Antonio? That'd be something else, right?
Yeah, or that one city in Michigan that hasn't had clean water in like 6 years. Like we're gonna mobilize federal funds and maybe even military funds to deal with that. Like, imagine that.
I do see it both ways, though. I honestly believe, like, just being on social media and just trying to be on all sorts of different pages. I don't just get my news from CNN or Fox. I really try to move across the political spectrum where I get my stuff. And the majority of the nation does agree that, whether we like it or not, like, they see these as riots. It's not protesters. Despite probably 98% of the people out there are there for the right reasons, there are those that are obviously are not. But I guess where I separate myself is that I do recognize that you can't have people burning buildings, whether it's private property or federal property. But I just wish that local law enforcement was the one that was handling it, only because when the dust settles after November and these issues are no longer like hyper politicized as they are right now because of the election, the people that it's going to be local law enforcement that is going to have to go back and clean up the mess that's left and build up these relations between police and the citizens. The federal troops and the federal government are not going to be there to try to build that bridge back up that's been destroyed right now, right? It's going to be the local law enforcement, local leaders that are going to have to clean up all these mess and kind of bridge that divide. And so I just kind of wish that they stepped up to the plate a little bit better and at least acknowledge that there's an issue and we can't allow these to happen in our cities.
That's well said.
Dustin, what how do you feel though? Like, whenever you see, and I've got something to follow this up with, but how do you just in general, how do you feel when you see pictures and videos of people dressed in military garb in an American city clashing with clashing with protesters who themselves have shields and helmets and for good reason, because there's things being used against them
For
that
sure, yeah.
and people using leaf blowers to push gas away. I mean, how just for off top, how does that make you feel to see that?
Well, pretty clearly, my experience I've had that comes to mind right away is with both of you. It reminds me of walking through the streets of Istanbul, where you see that there is no differentiating uniform between policemen and military, and that's a scary thought, and that's something where I'm not going to say I'm as informed as you two guys on that. That hasn't necessarily been the thing that I know. I've been looking into more of like what is the intentions of a president that trying to be the law and order. I think he's trying to get a big political win here, where if he can be the one who kind of burns out these riots, I think that'd be a really interesting thing. That's what he can be, the law and order guy. And I guess he's no longer allowed to use Ronald Reagan, but
not anymore.
Yeah,
no.
It's pretty sad that, like, if I want to protest, and us three, we went to multiple protests together. Like, I have to pack a bag with a change of clothes. I have to have some sort of eye protection. I have to have some sort of mask, these things to protect me from any sort of tear gas or chemical agents.
You mean the stuff that's not allowed to be used in warfare anymore, but that could be used on you in America?
And then I gotta maybe I have I even packed some milk in some containers and stuff. Like, I have to be prepared for this, well equipped. This is a force that is not as well equipped as the military, but you could certainly make a damn argument that they are that well equipped.
They are better equipped than some militaries.
All of that just to practice a right that is supposedly God-given.
Yeah,
I have to prepare for that.
Well, and that's the interesting thing, I suppose, about in Portland. You're not really hearing about businesses or stores being looted. The anger, and like I said, even if you took the far right approach and just said, "Oh, these damn rioters and Antifa," and that they're really just trying to tear this nation apart, it's like the anger is at least focused in one direction right now. It doesn't seem to be citywide fires and things like that. The anger is very clearly directed at the federal courthouse, at the feds that are there, and at law enforcement. And so, for me, I suppose the most enraging part of it all is that now, this isn't speculation by me, by the way. This is a fact. There are private contractors, military contractors, that are being used by the feds, and so they're not even all federal officers anymore. So there's rumors that Blackwater's there, and then another one I think is IFM. I think these independent contractors are there, and these are guys that are ex-military and that are they're mercenaries being used to enforce laws on the American people, and to use chemical agents, clubs, projectiles, and stuff like that. So that's one of the most disturbing occurrences to me, is that they're using private contractors, and there seems to be no hesitation to gas the wall of moms. The president would have you believe that that's a hoax as well, but it's like middle-aged women are being gassed. There's been a wall of vets. I've seen videos of, I saw a video of a 14-year-old girl get pinned to the ground and beaten by a few officers that may or may not have been officers at all. They might have been mercs. And so for me, man, I find it really, when Barr was being grilled, today on TV, I think it was Representative Jayapal that was grilling him. She made a really good point, and I have to agree. It's like with Barr, he almost acted like he hadn't heard about the armed protests in Michigan at the State House there. Yeah. So she just kind of told him, like, look, man, you seem to know a whole lot about these BLM protests, and you're deploying federal officers there. But when armed protesters in Michigan threatened to lynch, behead, and shoot the governor of the state over the lockdown measures, you're nowhere to be found. There's no federal officers put into Michigan there, and there's no federal involvement on that when it's a direct threat to the state governor. And so that's what those are the two things that have been really
let me
nuts.
ask you this question, man. It's off the top, and we haven't even discussed this yet. But just thinking, like, from a standpoint of thinking about the principle of federalism and what is the national government's responsibility and what is the state's responsibility. Clearly, law enforcement that we're seeing is a local responsibility. And that's kind of where
Yeah.
that's where I draw the line.
Yeah.
Right. I think that these riots need to be suppressed. If somebody is trying to burn a building down, they should certainly be held criminally responsible. I am not disputing that one bit, but it's my opinion that it should be that justice should be served through local law enforcement. But let me ask you this, because I'm thinking about the activation of federal troops or even the National Guard. Historically speaking, like I'm thinking back on the Little Rock Nine in Arkansas when we talked about the integration of schools, right? And I have that vivid memory or that picture in my head of is it Eisenhower, right?
Yeah.
That activates the National Guard, and they're out there standing on the steps of the school, making sure that that blacks and whites are going to follow federal law, passed down by the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And so it kind of puts me in a position. I'm kind of asking what's your opinion on it. It kind of puts me in a position where I've seen examples of where good was done when the federal troops probably stepped in, and it could have been argued that, hey, it's school, this is a local issue.
Well, that was, yeah. I think I see where you're going with this. So like, it should be noted, I think that was the 182nd Airborne that was deployed there for that. Could be wrong, but don't think I'm wrong. But then those are actual troops, and they're there to enforce something that I think is almost unanimously regarded as a good, right?
Yeah.
So for me, if the federal courthouse in Portland is burned to the ground and local authorities do nothing, then yeah, I think the argument exists that like, hey, you aren't enforcing the law because it is in fact illegal to burn a building to the ground. Like, you could even be charged for burning your own shit to the ground, much less a federal courthouse. But it's like, they weren't afforded that chance. If it was a Republican run state, you have to imagine that the local authorities would at least have a chance to do that. And so they didn't respond because the building was actually burned. They responded because it was vandalized with graffiti.
Yeah.
So that was the original thing. And so I don't think if the local authorities absolutely don't do shit about it, then yeah, sure, that argument can be made. But at the moment, and in Little Rock, like you said, that's an easy one. Like, if the feds didn't come in, for sure, in Arkansas in 1954, they're not letting those kids in that school.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, you bring up a good point. It's not. I will disagree that it wasn't widely publicly accepted.
No. At the time, absolutely not. I'm saying that right now we can overall. I think looking back, everyone says, well, yeah, that was the right move. I don't think people will look back on this in 70 years and say, man, Trump was really onto something.
Speaking of being onto something, and Trump, what are your thoughts on the doctors that from Breitbart that decided to do a 42-minute
I've been
video
waiting for this.
White guy, on my notes over here, I literally have this tabbed under witch doctor.
Honestly, dude, like, you should. I don't own a white coat, but that would have been awesome if we all wore white coats today.
I want to echo something.
Double and triple our shares.
That's something that you said, Justin. Like, I do not delete people from my social media, regardless of their opinions. Like, I might hit the snooze button if you say some really racist shit. Like, I'm gonna hit the snooze button, but I'm still gonna keep you on because I just want to understand people that have your opinion. Like, I don't want to completely shut those people out of my life. Like,
I'm not going to respect you, but I'm not going to shut you out.
Exactly. And,
I mean?
I've seen this video. People believe, or they want to believe so bad that, like, if the media doesn't want you to see it, it somehow must be right. And it's just, I can't get with it. There is, but let me say this again. I'm gonna end up being the middle person in this damn podcast. It's supposed to be Dustin. But I will say that there has been multiple studies that will show you, each side's argument. There's definitely studies that are going to say, hey, this drug, what is it, hydroxychloroquine?
Yeah.
This drug is effective. It's worked. We've used it.
Don't forget the zinc.
And there's also just as many studies that are going to say the complete.
But the biggest double-blind study said it wasn't.
That it was not. No, and I'm not arguing that, but I'm saying, is there evidence? Is there certainly evidence enough for a video to be up on Facebook? Perhaps. Is this the right spokesperson for it? That arguably no.
No, that's the thing though, is right. Is it we I watched the thing, and it's like for the casual viewer, maybe seeing that it came from Breitbart didn't flip a switch for you, but for anybody that reads news or that even knows anything about anything, when you see that it's Breitbart, you're like, got it. And you see these. So the doctor that I had that I guess had the biggest speaking role in this is actually from Houston.
Oh,
So I'm
shout
like,
out Houston.
yeah, shout out Houston. So I look her up, check it out, and within 5 minutes of doing some research on this doctor, she's absolutely fucking wacky, right? Like really, really nuts, and was on record saying that like some female problems, like we won't get that far into it, but like some female problems are as a result of demon sperm.
Yeah.
And that alien DNA is used in certain medical practices and things like that. Really, really wacky. And so online, people were just it's just remarkable to see so many people on social media talking about like they're trying to censor it and there's a cure for COVID. And so they went so far in this video to say that there is a cure for COVID and that you don't need to wear a mask, which a few days ago even Trump got on the mask bandwagon. But it's just it's absolutely it's really, really nuts. And it's
let me ask you, I just want to play Desla, and Dustin, this would be a question for you. Would it have been the worst thing ever for Facebook and these other platforms to allow the video to stay up?
Because that'd have been my point.
Because
I
it's
think
not
there's
that you can't. This is not you can't just go to the pharmacy and go grab. This isn't
it's not over the counter.
Exactly. You got to get a prescription for this thing. So, just to that point, Dustin, what were you going to say?
That's what I did have some issues about censorship. Facebook serves as a role of government in a lot of ways, like when they make a rule, and they obviously weren't elected. So I think that is a wormhole that, and honestly, I would just assume if that kept getting shared and it got left on, that if enough people actually watched the video, they could decide for themselves, like this isn't very high quality stuff, that like JB said, you don't have to go down much of a wormhole to see some of the holes in this, and even in themselves, like their numbers switch throughout the one lady from Houston went from, she had cured 100 people to at one point she said 250 to 300. I mean, you can just tell it's not a very sound thing. And like the people they're arguing against are not like, they're other scientists and doctors. Like it's not we're not like just as a liberal group, like, hey, let's just pick this. Like we're trying to listen to science and doctors too. But I do think a censorship is an honest and fair thing to talk about, because at what point, it's like, so that's the thing that I think is very interesting.
Well, and I would say if it was almost about anything else, maybe the censorship argument needs to be at the forefront of this. But when it applies to public health,
but by censoring it makes the sentiment more popular.
Well, no,
so you're doing
that's a really good point, because this video was shared, I think, 20 million times in 5 hours. Like it's ultra viral, right? And so I kind of agree. It's like by taking it down, now you've got a lot of people who are really not smart people rushing to post this thing. Like, oh yeah, they don't want us to have it, and this is the truth. And it's like, man, maybe the reason why, if these doctors are telling the truth, maybe the reason why people haven't died under their watch with this treatment is because it wasn't a massive dose that they were giving. And you've been saying all along that it's a 99% survival rate if you're not an at-risk candidate. So that's my point, is that it's like, how are you so bold in claiming that this is a cure and that you don't need a mask for something that, on the other hand, you were saying wasn't that serious to begin with? You know what I mean?
And all of those numbers were a pretty small sample size as well. Guys, I didn't look any further past. I saw that it was recorded on an iPhone 7, and I kind of checked out.
Yeah.
If your press conference is on an iPhone 7 camera, I'm probably not going to spend too much time listening to it. So I'm guilty of that, I guess.
Well, hey, for our last bit on this, man, like I said, there have been cries, and like you guys said, they could be valid. There's been cries all across the internet of censorship, and that it's so wrong to take this thing down, and that even with the saying that big tech kind of doesn't favor conservative values and things like this, and they're trying to censor the top 10 Facebook ad revenue pages in the world right now, or sorry, in the US, are all conservative ones, right?
Every 10 of them. All 10.
Right. Yeah, all 10. And so this is my other point, is that we talked about this the other day. I see multiple people, they're probably just fine, very polite people, very nice people, but they post articles on the regular from a site called America's Last Line of Defense, right?
Yeah.
Washington Post did a cover on this site. The guy that started it is a lifelong Democrat, and this is just a massive troll operation that he runs on this website. And every single article is fake. And they did an expose on it. Like he does this and makes $12,000 a month from ad revenue because because these things are shared so much. And so many of the people that are online, decrying censorship and saying that this is the cure, and how come this isn't taken seriously, or how come this is shut down but this isn't shut down. It's like, well, pardon me, but the people that are backing this this COVID cure video are the same ones that unironically share stuff from America's Last Line of Defense. Like you don't know that it's fake news, and a guy is literally trolling you for money. Maybe that's why. And so when I say that not all opinions are created the same, it's because when you unironically post something that's patently untrue, when you do that enough, it's kind of like the boy that cried wolf. Like, okay, let's say for a second this COVID thing that you've posted from Breitbart is true. How are you meant to be taken seriously when you've posted this garbage for years?
Yeah.
That's a troll.
And here I am thinking I knew what my dream job was, and this guy just kind of
just getting rich trolling idiots.
Yeah, he just swept the rug right out of my feet. I love it.
There was a video the other day that a couple people that I know posted. It was like it was a fake quote from Tom Brady talking about kneeling. And it was just like, Tom Brady, if anyone on my team kneels, I'm out. And it's like, not only is this crazy and untrue at all, like you posted it and got 30 likes and got a bunch of comments like, "Amen, brother. Yeah, make this public so I can share it." And it's like, oh my God, it's a fake fucking article, you dummy.
Let's move on to sports here. WNBA season restarted. Their season with dedicated to social justice. They launched a new platform, the Justice Movement, to amplify the voices and leadership of WNBA players. Their games honor the Black Lives Matter movement and the Say Her Name campaign. Also, like on an actual basketball note, Sabrina Ionescu, is touted as like the LeBron James, like I think it's the most comparable
female Romanian LeBron.
Yeah, she is an absolute stud. Last year in college, she led her college basketball team Oregon to defeat Team USA. So it's a pretty big deal. She's as heralded, she's as talented as, and so
shout out to our Romanian friends, by the way.
That's right.
Yeah.
Good
Alex.
basketball genetics over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, they put her up against Sue Bird, one of the best players in the world, and so they got a as you talked about, she got a little bit of a raw deal.
She had a welcome to the pros moment. Like they blitzed every ball screen that she came off of. She caught some hard fouls, had kind of struggled shooting from three and stuff, and wasn't this spectacular debut. I think she's still going to be a great player.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dustin, I got to ask you, man, is her defense better than Justin's? Because I'm looking for an excuse to watch a WNBA game.
Check Sean out.
I'm not trying to.
Nobody gives. I have to tell this to Sean all the time. Nobody gives me buckets.
I'm not going to be hating on JB's game. I would just say Ionescu is a ton of fun to watch. She is worth watching.
She would be a handful.
She'd be a handful. She's got a Harden-esque game to her a little bit. She's got a lot of crafty ways to score.
I respect the heck out of her, and that what I think sets her apart from not size or really anything other than position and clout. I guess you could compare her to kind of like Kelsey Plum, but she's bigger, has
more fluid in her movement,
more rebounding potential and stuff. I mean, Kelsey Plum will light it up. Don't get me wrong, but speedy recovery, by the way. But Ionescu's she's got that triple-double potential. And so she had, I think, 27 triple-doubles while she was at Oregon. And there have only been, I think, 9 or 10 ever in the WNBA. And so that's why they're right to be very excited about her and to see what she does. And so even though it was kind of it's not easy to have your first game against Sue Bird in the Storm, but she'll be
the best team in the league.
Yeah, she'll be fine.
Yeah, and then moving on to the NBA bubble, really exciting news. Got reposted again today. 0 positive tests in the last thing, so things are
Nice.
going well. Adam Silver might want to think about going from the commish to a president one day. That guy's figured out some things.
Dude, he's to be honest, people are only talking about it from a business standpoint right now, as far as the major professional leagues are concerned. But I wouldn't be surprised if, I mean, people should be looking on this right now at the NBA bubble as kind of a case study for quarantining and wearing of face masks and social distancing and those things. And because it's like no new cases. The only cases that were positive were when the guys first came in.
Right.
So it undoubtedly came from the outside, and they handled it the way they were supposed to. And so the investment seems to be paying off. And it's 2020 for you. You know, the case study for COVID happens to come from a pro basketball league.
Yeah,
It's pretty cool. Hey, is it too late to be a Denver? Am I a bandwagon fan if I jump on the Denver train?
Bobo
You
can
are, but
go.
I can't hate on it because
Look, let me give you my justification over here. Okay.
Okay.
Ever since
Jokic.
Duncan left,
shout out Johnny for the
ever
pronunciation.
since Duncan left, like I really feel that Jokic is like the new fundamental forward of the league. Like I see a lot of similarities in their quiet game. You know, they play, in my opinion, they play basketball the right way. But then you got these other guys, man, that just come alive for them, right? They got a crazy bench. Put on, you stack on Bol. We still don't know what Michael Porter Jr. could do. I want to say this early. I want to say it right now. I'm putting on that Denver hat. I'm ready to ride that train, man.
You've got Denver. My hat I'm gonna be throwing on. Shout out to Lou Will for going out and getting chicken wings. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. But I'm going with Houston. So Houston, here's my pitch. My 2-minute elevator pitch for them is that this is gonna be a kind of an AAU setting. That, you know, lots of games, lots of chances to get in rhythm, and I think the best pickup basketball player in the world is probably James Harden. That guy is an absolute bucket. I think the greatest scorer, the best just pure scorer in the league. So I'd love to see James Harden. You know, I think this is a real opportunity for him. And then you put Russell Westbrook right next to him, who's maybe
genuinely, and I mean this, do you genuinely enjoy watching Houston play basketball, though? It's not to take anything away from Harden or those guys, or even their chances for that matter. But do you as a coach, do you like watching that brand of basketball?
So it's not the brand I would want to coach or plan, but I do. There's just a genuine respect for the skill work that James Harden has. Like he is such a craftsmanship. He has such a craftsmanship to his game. I don't love, like, it'd be tough to be some of those role players that just like have to catch and shoot and like that's all they do and it's one every. But just watching James Harden's skill is something that I have a great deal of respect for. Westbrook's always been one of my favorites. That not necessarily style of play, but just the dog to him and how hard he competes, and just kind of his, like, he's gonna go down doing it his way. And there's some sort of respect for that. So no, that's not the optimal style. I don't love that, but yeah, James Harden's skill set and just ability to kind of do whatever the hell he wants scoring wise, I'm a big fan of. Who's your kind of team in the West you're looking at? Are you sticking with?
Mavs, man. What do you mean?
Oh, okay.
We got Luka, we got Porzingis. Everybody, almost everybody's healthy. Like those guys
that
are.
Team.
Yeah, I'm talking about the best team in Texas in the Mavs, actually. But yeah,
That's interesting.
I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to them pushing
getting knocked
through.
out in the first round.
No, I'm not predicting a championship or anything crazy like that. I think it's their. This is the year that they kind of maybe overachieve and surprise some people, and then next year they could be a premier team in the West.
So I'm asking this. I'm not trying to be. They'd be set up to be like the Clippers' first round opponent right now, right? They're the 7 and
to be
Clippers
honest,
the 2, or is that? Do we know?
I thought they were in the hunt for one.
Dallas is they've shifted between 6 and 8 this entire time, so they won't go higher than 6. But and if they catch the Clippers first round, that's
a tough matchup.
It's very tough. But to be honest with you, I'd rather catch. I think that somebody could catch the Clippers sleeping early much rather than later. If you put the Clippers, and really, if it pans out that way, I mean, I think a lot of people would like to see the Lakers Clips.
Absolutely.
That the two arguably the two best teams, maybe even in the whole league. So that would be cool. But I've just been back on what you guys are talking about, man. I'm stoked for Bol. Like he's cool to watch because he's so big, he's so tall and so long. But
He's got touch.
man, and I hate to see when guys are there on draft night and stuff. I hate to see when guys drop. So it's like if you get drafted earlier than expected and your family's super happy, that's great. If you get drafted where you're supposed to get drafted, that's cool. But when a guy slips, that's like obviously a lottery level talent, and then you slip, and it's all because of the injury, you know. And some guys like Kyrie could be injured and only play like 8 games for Duke, and still go number 1. But with Bol, there's a lot of speculation on injury and how, you know, and he's still young, so I mean, who knows? He might be injury prone, but at the moment, dude's killing, and Denver looks really smart for getting him, man. It's been really cool to watch.
Yeah, and then Zion has been in and out of the bubble, so you know this whole 24 team thing was kind of.
He's got to live a little, man.
Yeah, I guess it was one of like this is all set to the NBA wants Zion versus Ja in that little play-in game, and then Zion just will not go quietly.
He probably had to get some food, man. He had to get some
He was
food.
probably out with Lou Will, and he just stayed a little more low key.
Will. Man, that's one of my favorite personalities in the league is Lou Williams.
I love how he tried to downplay the whole thing, man. He said, "Man, I can't get some wings."
Yeah.
Well, you see Perk go at him.
Brother can't get some wings.
Yeah. Perk is slowly and surely endearing himself to the entire league. Nobody's gonna love him by the time this is done. But yeah, Lou had to hit Magic City and win in Orlando, I guess, right?
Hey, Johnny Manziel backed his claim that those are some of the best wings in the country.
Yeah.
So
if there's any person from this part of the country that knows strip clubs and clubs, it's got to be Johnny.
Yeah.
If there's any town I hate more than Kerrville, wait, there's not one.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, yeah, dude. We've also got again. Pedestrian
NFL. I like this.
Pedestrian combat sports fan, but active NFL fan. So the next 2 things we've got here, Mahomes signs just this massive deal, and immediately, like almost immediately now, is opting in for ownership of the Royals. I mean, he's huge moves, and he's a Texas guy as well. But yeah, massive freaking contract, and happy for him. And I mean, it's everything that he's done thus far, I mean, kind of deserves it, isn't it?
Well, Mahomes is almost boring to talk about because, like, you know, these sports debates, you always want dissent, and like you're never.
What can you say about?
Yeah,
that?
You're never gonna. There's no guy that's like that's a lot of money, but like that guy's worth it. Like so, like it's funny to see like how quickly that went. Just a $500 million contract for QB, but still they're all like, no, he's that guy. Like just pay him and take care of it. And then old Jamal Adams had been talking a bit about his teammates and finally got traded to the place where everybody talks. So he's going to Seattle. Pete Carroll loves outspoken.
There's been a hole since Sherman left.
That's right.
So now he's filling it.
He figured out, Earl Thomas was the next guy, just talking shit to everybody, and then he broke his legs. They needed a new secondary guy. So
then we got the Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson.
They've inked the fight. Him and Roy Jones Jr. So I'm a pedestrian. Like these guys are much more into combat sports than I, and I'm fucking excited about the Tyson fight just because I've seen all the hype videos. But it's like to think that this guy's 50 years old, moving like that. It's scary. Like it's visibly scary to watch, and it's just like imagine having to fight this guy ever. But much.
I read an article that said the Mike Tyson fight's going to come with a heavy price, and so I clicked on the article. It has some good clickbait. I clicked on the article. It's $50. Okay, like if this is your favorite athlete of all time, $50. Like I would pay $50 to watch Tim Duncan play against like the '99 Clippers. Like I don't give a shit. Like if it's your favorite athlete, I'm paying the $50. Right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. It's going to be cool. I did hear one thing that kind of made me scratch my head. They said if there's supposedly like a clause in there that if either athlete, and I'm calling 50-year-old men athletes right now.
He's an athlete. That's fair.
If either athlete is to get a cut, right, that they have grounds to like stop the fight. I'm not talking about something where your eyes swollen shut, something
I don't think they're calling it with regular judges as well. I think it's just until someone's either cut or until someone's fucking knocked out, which is what everyone's hoping. Yeah, I'm going to make a prediction, and again, pedestrian fight fan here, but I saw a video of, and maybe the quality was just bad, but it looked like Roy Jones Jr. had a training video that he was taking very seriously, but he's in slides in the ring. And then I see a bunch of videos where Tyson's the guy that's training Tyson it looks like he's the Michelin Man because of the hits he's having to absorb.
If we're getting set up for like a Jake Paul Justin Berry fight, I'm gonna be pretty pissed because they really sold.
I'm winning that. Hey, Nate Robinson's fighting him though in the opening card. That's gonna be awesome.
That's gonna be pretty. Who do y'all got on that, man?
I'm taking Nate. I'm taking Nate.
You
for
got
sure.
pro athlete or YouTube sensation?
Well, man, Nate's little. What? Because that other guy's kind of tall, isn't he?
Jake Paul.
Isn't
How big is Jake Paul?
Jake.
Well,
I don't
let's not ask.
Nate Robinson's a professional athlete, though. This
hasn't I don't even know who Jake Paul is, but he's fought a couple of these though, hasn't he? He's like done this a couple times.
Well, you have to stay relevant somehow.
Dustin's line. He absolutely knows who's Jake Paul.
I don't really know that much about him.
He's 6'1", which is still infinitely taller than Nate Robinson.
Nate's like 5'9".
Yeah, so
Nate's built.
Yeah.
Nate's a pretty strong dude, and like being an undersized NBA dude, he's gotten into fights. Like I think he's had to scrap before. I think.
And then finally, I mean, Post Malone is starting a beer pong league, and it seems to be legit because he's already filed all this stuff for it. It's going to be a beer pong league, which, I mean, if NASCAR gets to be considered a sport, then Post Malone's beer pong league is going to be a sport to me. Are you guys going to tune into that? I definitely am.
I never thought we'd be talking about Post Malone in our sports commentary here,
but we are.
But we're in the middle of a pandemic, and we realized that everything is possible. Beer pong, man.
It's gonna be sick, dude. I'm tuning in for sure.
I like that. That's pretty cool. Hey, what if there was like a quantifiable like beer pong competition where you could enter the tournament if you were able to sink, right? I mean, would that not draw you in? Would you not do the challenge?
I'd be into that. I was just so much of a part of our late teens and early 20s. It's something that I feel like
you're rusty.
Yeah,
you're rusty.
All right, so we're gonna move on from this because no one cares at this point about that. We have a music festival draft. All right, dead or alive. We're gonna roll through this. Got about 10 minutes left, so we had some good talk. So we'll kind of just read through the rules real quickly. You've got 5 timelines. You got 11 a.m., 2 p.m., 5 p.m., 8 p.m., and 11 p.m. And you kind of get to put together your group. You don't have to draft them in that order.
Dustin, read that off one more time.
11 a.m., 2 p.m., 5 p.m., 8 p.m., and 11 p.m. You do not have to draft in that order. We're going to let JB go first because he's never gotten to get the first pick before.
Okay.
So JB is going to, as always, we're going snake draft. And again, we're going dead or alive. And then at the end, we'll kind of talk about our order. Then we'll give our venue and the name of the festival. So JB,
that comes last. We're taking Axe first.
Give us the overall picture right at the end.
All right, man. Well, my first draft pick, and I don't think it was at risk at all of you guys stealing it, but my first draft pick is going to be Slipknot.
Nice.
So I gotta go with that.
It's
a great pick. It's gonna bring a lot of fans in.
Starting with that.
That's my first one.
So I knew Sean was gonna go one country person. I'm gonna go ahead and grab this guy because I really want him to start my festival. But I want Willie Nelson. I want Willie Nelson to start the festival. I want him at 11.
That's a solid pick, buddy.
I'm snaking over here.
Yep, you got 2.
I got 2. Yeah, so snaking it got 2. I'm gonna take the other country king off the board. I'm going George Strait to start.
Oh man, check him out.
More number 1s than any of your other picks over here.
Fuck you, Sean.
And then
Sean makes his first good pick and he gets cocky.
Hey, it's not a festival unless you got a little. You walk up, you got a little smoke in the air. I'm going Bob Marley, second pick.
Oh, that's huge.
That hurts.
That's a big one.
Man,
he's got George Strait and Bob Marley. Do you think those guys cross paths at your festival?
They will.
Nice.
Man, all right, that's a great pick. That was my first option on my 2 o'clock. So I'm gonna go to my second option and go Jimi Hendrix at 2 o'clock.
So good one. That's really good.
All right,
I'm going way more contemporary than you guys, but I feel like that's fine.
Damn, great.
You guys are gonna get the boomer vote when we put this online later, but that's fine. So I've got 2. Is that correct?
Yep.
That's correct.
All right, man. So my next pick is going to be none other than, I'm going to go A$AP Rocky.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I feel like he brings in a huge, he's going to bring in a huge crowd and a very diverse crowd at that. And then another one, I'm going to go Rammstein.
Ooh.
Rammstein. So yeah,
Oh.
the Germans are coming, and they've got the pyrotechnics, and it's going to be a big
Little
it's gonna
diversity
It's
here.
going to be a big deal. Yeah. So Dustin, you're up.
I'm gonna go ahead and grab because they're a group and as individuals I like them so they can give me a little bit of diversity. I'm gonna go ahead and
TLC.
I'm gonna go get Outcast. I'm gonna grab them for
that's a
one of my
badass
evening.
pick, dude.
So
Damn.
I'm kind of jealous of. That's a badass pick. I'm
All right,
very jealous.
I got two over here. Justin, I thought you were gonna steal this from me, man. I think it's very relevant today. The message. I'm going Rage Against the Machine.
dude, I have the.
Yes, it's too. That's like bucket list stuff.
That's
dude,
a
to be
really
in a rage
yeah,
mosh
man.
pit, right?
Yeah, that's
Rage Against the Machine, and then following them up, keeping the energy. I've seen this guy. I was at a concert and I saw him perform. He was a special guest. He just came out of nowhere and performed one song really quick, and everybody forgot why they were there because they were just focused on this guy. I'm going Lil Wayne, man.
that's a good one.
I like it.
That's a good one.
So I will go ahead and I was between two rock. I needed rock. I'm not the greatest. I'm definitely third in the rock game over here. But I'm gonna go ahead and grab AC/DC and take them off the board. I'm just gonna
Okay.
keep finding the boomers.
Okay, yeah.
So there's
Damn it.
that for you guys.
By the way, I'll share this with you. I got a interesting text from our pal Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah. So am I correct here in thinking I've got two more picks and
You
it's
do.
the snake?
You've
Yeah.
got two more
Okay.
picks.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how familiar you guys are, but I'm selecting them strictly off of just because I like them and I think it would be
It's your festival.
I think it would be a badass thing, a diverse crowd as well. I'm gonna go Flatbush Zombies, my favorite rap group by far. Very into the, let's just say the substance crowd is gonna be there, and
Gotcha.
also just the hip hop crowd.
All right. Your
And then
headliner.
My final, well, no, I'll tell you who's got what slot, but my
Oh,
final
he said,
pick.
Shut up and he'll
No,
tell
no,
you.
no,
He'll tell you
no.
later.
These aren't my headliners.
I'm going
These
in order here.
these
He'll
are
tell you
no,
later.
these are my openers
I'm
actually,
not in
but
order.
I'm taking Milky Chance.
Mm.
Yeah, we're good. We're going extra vibey over here.
I'm gonna be super basic here. I would just, again, if this was mine, I'd love to have him be one of my headliners. I'm going Snoop Dogg. I'm throwing him
shit.
in there. So
Okay.
Sean,
Probably my guy is my headliner. I went in order because y'all bastards didn't tell me otherwise.
we did
Greatest entertainer to ever live. He has transcended cancel culture. Michael Jackson.
Oh,
There it is.
Oh God, you can't have any children at your festival.
Hey, can't cancel him though. You still vibe to him.
Oh man.
All right, so we'll go opposite of the order here. Sean, if you wanna give us your location and the order that you went, your dumbass just went in order, so you can just give us that. And
I did
tell us
in
what
order.
your name is,
Yeah.
and
So coming at you live from Roswell, New Mexico.
Mm.
Some weird shit, right?
Mm.
Hey, the guys after us would dig that.
Oh yeah, we're
Yeah.
charging a solid $500 for a band to attend the first ever When Vibes Collide tour.
oh,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
nice.
You better trademark that, dude. Travis Scott is gonna steal that.
We're opening it up with George Strait. We're following it up with some Bob Marley over there. We're gonna mosh with some Rage Against the Machine. Keep that energy alive with Lil Wayne, and then we're gonna wrap it up with the greatest entertainer of all time, Michael Action Jackson.
Oh,
All right, mine is gonna be that was your best draft by far, Sean.
Thank you.
That's a very low standard, but you did a good job. You did. I can honestly say for once that was a good job, man. Willie Nelson's gonna be my 11. Jimi Hendrix is my 2.
wake and bake.
AC/DC is my 5. I'm gonna have this one's the tough one because Snoop and Outkast both deserve to be my late show, but I'm gonna give love to Outkast being my late one. Snoop will go at 8. Because Snoop will jump back on the stage at 11 at some point. They'll do
They'll be
something.
back
There's a
up.
lot of
Um,
weed in the air.
and
at your-
so-
at your festival.
And then so mine will be the Escape Podfest, and it'll be in Santa Barbara.
Okay.
Doesn't matter time of the year because it's pretty all year.
All right. Well, to counteract you basic bitches over here on your locations, I'm gonna be. I gotta go international with it. This is gonna be called the. This is gonna be in Reykjavik in Iceland.
Oh,
Yeah,
Wow.
we talked about it. Under 5 hours flight from New York,
Need a
and then a hop,
passport.
skip, and a jump from the rest of Europe. Yeah, you gotta have a passport to come to my shit.
I'm not mad at that pick.
Yeah, but this is it's going to be called the End of the Earth Festival, and so preferably we'll maybe in the fall, maybe in the winter, we don't know. But the idea is to be surrounded by cold and ice, and then the show is just fire. And so the 11 a.m. we've got Milky Chance to kind of ease you
Okay.
into it. You know, nice, very very chill vibe. Second, we've got to go. We're starting the hip hop twist with. We've got the Flatbush Zombies to wake you up. ASAP is going to be the 5 o'clock. Then this is tough because my favorite band in the world is Slipknot, but I'm not giving them the final thing. They're gonna get everybody charged up at 8, and then the headliner, I guess, or the last one to really just melt all the
Over the
ice.
top.
Yeah, it's gonna be the Rammstein because I don't think anybody's got the reputation they've got for
Where do,
pyrotechnics and stuff.
Where do I pick up my trophy?
Yeah,
Where do
fuck
we-
you.
Well,
Sean.
Where's my prize?
Yeah.
Speaking of your trophy, if you guys don't want to see Sean win, when we post it on the Escape Pod app, make sure that you guys comment and vote on whose is best. And if you don't love arrogance, don't vote for Sean.
Man, I don't know that most George Strait. I don't know if they're even going to travel to New Mexico for that. I don't even know if they're going to leave their backyard for that. So,
But yeah, thank you guys for joining us. We'll have a new shtick, something to do next week. We'll let Sean try and actually carry some weight and think of something for next week.
Thank
But
you.
Sean, send us out, man.
Guys, thanks for all y'all support thus far. Really trying to be a podcast that reaches out to all the people, regardless of what your political views are. Hell, some of our biggest supporters thus far have been some far right leaning guys, but we love y'all. We appreciate your support. The best thing that you can do is to like, follow, and share. We'll see y'all next week.